we move on. In fact, we can look so far into it that we can grab what we need. So if I console log the response body, notice it's an array that contains an object. So the first thing I'm going to have to do is index into that array at 0. And that way I have the actual object. And what data do I need? I need the word. So let me just do this as an example. If I key into word, there is the word we need, which is the first thing we'll need. So let's just get that down. So let's let our word equal exactly what I put earlier, res body at 0 dot word. And let's look back at our response object. Click that again. So the other thing we need is the definition. You can either look here. Hopefully, if you looked at this, you'll quickly spot the definition. It's a nested property within, right? So we have meanings, which is an array. So let's just go step by step. So like I said, we have meanings, which is an array. So if we key into meanings, give it a click, there's our array. Now we need to open up, all right, so we have an array. So let's even go as far as saying meanings at 0. Give it a click. Perfect. So now we have this object that has a key called definitions. So let's key into definitions. Definitions. Give this a click. Now we have an array with a bunch of definitions. So let's just grab the first one. So let's do definitions at 0. Give that a click. Perfect. So now we have an object who has a key called definition, and its value is exactly what we need, the definition. So we can just go ahead and index into definition, definition singular, give it a click, and there is our definition we'll need. So why don't we go ahead and just save that to a variable? Let's let our definition equal, let's call it our def, just so we don't run into any conflicts. Awesome. So now let's just console log it to make sure we didn't lose anything. Our def and our word. Give it a click. Okay, nice. So there's the definition, and then the word is right there, dictionary. So what did I say we needed to do now that we have access to these? We need to basically create a UL that's ultimately going to be appended to this results area. So let's create that UL. So let's let our list area equal document.create element, and we're creating a UL. And we can even console log that to make sure we actually created it. List area. There's the UL, perfect. So now we can add LIs to our UL. So a lot of ways you could have done this. You could have created, two different LIs and set their inner text to def and word, or we can just remember, how can we add children to a element? We can use inner HTML. So let's go with that approach. Either way would have been totally fine. So inner HTML. And what do we want it to be? We want it to be an LI that is written like this, word colon. So an LI with word colon, or word data, which is my variable called word. Nice. I think that should be that. And then let's close the LI. Oh, yeah, LI. Perfect. And the other thing we need is similar, but we need it to be the definition, and we'll pass in our def. So let's console log. Okay, perfect. So now we can console log our list area one more time, which is my UL. Let's click it. And nice. I see I have a UL and it has some LIs in it. So that's looking good. Oh, the one thing is actually notice that it's still just a UL and I don't see both of my LIs. So we need to not only just create an LI, we need to add our LIs. So how can we add something? We could just use plus equal instead. So let's try that out. Hopefully there we go. Now there's one LI and there's our other LI. Awesome. Sweet. So that's all looking good. So the only thing else we need to do is we have our UL. Now we need to append the UL to this list area. So I called it result area. So we can just say result area, append child, passing in our list area. Let's comment that out, try it out and see if we're getting there. And there it looks good. Word dictionary definition with the definition. Awesome. So I think that looks good and dandy. Why don't we go ahead and run our test to see if we're passing so far. And we passed all of our specs here. Nicely done. We are complete with the spec problem. So let's see what questions we have on this final one, number 9. Check chat. Make sure there are any hands up. Yes, Lola, what's going on?
You used an async, but could we also have used just the .then syntax?
Yeah, definitely. And we can even write it out that way. I think that could be a good use of time to see how to do it with .then rather than async await. So let's do it that way. Hopefully we can just grab some of this content. Still have these, so I'm going to add an event listener again on my button. And we're listening for a click. And we can just pass in our E. And now, since I'm going to use .then chaining, I don't need to have the async keyword there. So I think we can use a lot of this previous content. So let's just take our URL and we'll need, okay, so we have our URL. So now we can actually grab the ULs and LIs that we wanted. Yeah, let's do it a little differently where we're going to create our UL. So let's grab this. Nice, there's my UL. And rather than I could like create LIs, but maybe we can just, I'll do it the other way. So let's do let LI word. So instead of, doing inner HTML, I'm actually going to create LIs. Document, create element, LI, and then we're going to have LI definition. And that's just going to be that as well. So now we can get to the fetch, which was the main thing we were talking about. So without using async await, we can call our fetch and then use .then chaining. So remember, fetch returns a promise that basically evaluates to the response object. And if we want the body, we have to call res JSON still. And what does that do? It returns another promise that evaluates to the response body. So now let's open this up and console log response body to see if that's working. Let me move this over here, give it a click, and perfect. We got the same response body. So what can we do now? We can go ahead and put our logic inside of this little callback. So kind of the same deal where we're going to want to grab the definition in the word. So let's just make sure that those look correct. Def word. Give it a click. And perfect. Got all the stuff we need. So now we've got the definition of the word. So we can go ahead and set up the inner text this time rather than inner HTML if we wanted. So we can say li words inner text is equal to still string interpolation word. And our li definition inner text is going to be definition with our def. Sweet. So that should be our inner text on our LIs. So now all we have to do is append these to our UL and then append the UL to the result area. So we can just say ul.append child, and we're going to append li word. And we're going to do the same thing for li def. And then once we've appended all that, we can just append the UL to the result area. Result area. Oh, I don't think I created a UL. So let's also create, oh, there it is, list area. That's what I called it. List area. Perfect. So now results area, append child, and we're going to pass in our list area, which is the UL. Try giving that a run. And we're rocking and rolling. There it is. So, yep, you could have definitely done .then chaining as well. I'll post, I'll add this solution to AA update, and I'll leave both the, .then chaining as well as the async await. But any other questions on number 9 here? All right, if people are feeling good, I think we can take a look at the multiple choice. So the multiple choice, we've covered most of the topics, except there is some content from Saturday homework. And as a nice little help for Saturday homework, in your AA update for day 5, I added to the README a nice little Spark notes about that homework. So regarding that homework, you won't have to do any coding kind of questions on it, but you might have a multiple choice. So as long as you can, look up the answers in App Academy Open, control Fing on those readings, or glancing through this, you should be in good shape and have all the information you need. Again, that networking readings for homework for Saturday, are kind of a little tricky to read because it goes into topics that we really aren't going to cover in much depth in this course because, network engineering is its whole field. And we're not being networks engineers, but it's at least nice to have an idea, being able to read through this and having somewhat of an idea of how the internet and HTTP and all of that stuff is working. Some of it is kind of a recap on things we touched on when we were going over HTTP. Others are, newer concepts, and you'll see them in your Kahoot as well. So with that being said, let's get into the multiple choice. So the two methods on local storage object that allows you to read and write. And remember, if you didn't know, you could look up local storage on MDN, but you would see that those methods are your get item and your set item. Again, this is just a question you could check out on MDN. And hopefully the practices as well made you think of them. All right, this next one, when the user clicks on level 3, the console prints level 3, level 2, level 1, and that says what line of code can be inserted into print ID to only print the ID of the exact div that was clicked. Clicking level 2 would only print, meaning if I clicked level 2 here, it would only print level 2. So the issue they're running into right now is when you click level 3, because level 3 is a div nested inside these other divs, because of event bubbling, these other event listeners are going to fire. So what's the method we need to use when we don't want event bubbling? It is that stop propagation method we talked about earlier. Awesome. All right, when the page opens, the header tag doesn't contain any text. Which 3 of the following changes fixes this code so that it does? So with this one, right now, we just have this script that's getting executed basically before the H1's running, right? We're trying to get the element by ID, but the DOM hasn't loaded, so we wouldn't be able to grab the title. So the ways we can fix this is we could wrap it in a DOM content that loaded event listener. We could also use a window onload. And the final one is we could actually just move this script to the bottom of the body. You might have saw that as a possible workaround while you're going through your practices this week. I tend to think rather than moving your script to the bottom, because scripts are normally found in the head, it makes more sense to leave it in the head and use something like DOM content loaded. But that is a workaround where you could move the script to the end of the body. All right, awesome. Which 2 of the following statements incorrectly describes clients and servers? So this one, kind of a little bit of a throwback to servers and maybe a little bit about reading, but I really think this is more of I think I even put it here, like a week 16 concept. Oh yeah, like part 1, week 16 with TCP, UDP. So kind of a little bit of a throwback, but incorrectly describes clients and servers. So it says clients do not use TCP IP protocol suite to communicate with servers. That is not going to be correct because if you recall, the client has to follow, like the internet protocol IP as well as TCP. TCP you can kind of think of as that transfer protocol. And we went over that in depth a few weeks ago, but the client is going to use, HTTP, transfer protocol concepts when communicating to the server. So that is incorrect. It says the other one is the server requests data from a client, which controls and distributes that data. So that is kind of an inverse, right? The client requests content from a server and the server controls and distributes it. So that's also false. A server is used to design to serve multiple clients. That's definitely going to be the purpose of a server. And a server performs computations, shares data resources between multiple clients. Again, that's almost very similar to this one, but also going to be correct. We're almost through, so let's pause there and see if we had any questions off the bat on our multiple choice so far. right. If not, which of the following is not an attribute that exists on cookies? We know that expires is one. If you look, you'll see same site and path, but age is not an attribute. It is that max age. In fact, I wonder if we can see that here. Cookies. So we have like name, expires, but oh yeah, it's talking about like attributes. And well, we talk about how you would say it's not age, it's max age, like max dash age. So moving on, in the HTML above, which line of JavaScript below would correctly return the value in data item count? Assume the list item has been selected and saved in a variable called grocery item. So we need to be able to essentially key into our grocery item in order to return the value of the data attribute. So if you recall, how do we key into the data attribute? We say the variable name dot data set. And in the case of a dash, remember that in our JavaScript, a dash is going to be camel case, right? We can't write item dash count in JavaScript because they would say, hey, are you trying to subtract count? So that's why we have to use that camel case there. And last but not least, which three, this one is definitely probably from your reading, which three of the following statements correctly identify and describe parts of the TCP IP protocol suite? So, to answer something like this, you can use the combination of this README as well as your readings. So the answer to this one is a port is a virtual connection. They're not physical connections. Remember, ports are virtual connections. The IP, definitely going to be using an IP as well. It is the primary communication protocol that enables networking on the internet. I think I even put that in the reading. Allows the internet to be internet, kind of Spark Notes, but that's essentially what that is. And then the final one is about MAC addresses, and they are permanent IDs on devices. And the only one that's not is this TCP connectionless communication protocol that best serves time. And that is not going to describe it correctly. So let's try submitting. Hopefully I didn't misclick, and we got 100. So as far as your multiple choice, you'll have a couple where you might be able to look up on MDN. Something like this, you could, write the code out in VS Code and try executing it and seeing what happens. You could try that as an example, but hopefully if you see something where it's like some kind of bubbling up issue, you're going to use stop propagation. This was, again, something you could have tried out in VS Code, and the others, I think I kind of went over in depth, or at least enough. Awesome. But that does conclude our practice assessment. So any other final questions or thoughts on the practice assessment? And I will add this solution we did to AA update right after this. All right. Well, if people are feeling good, let me stop the recording here.
Recording stopped.
So what we're going to do for the next hour is basically today is a free study day. So again, that practice assessment was long. It took everyone a while. I definitely think it'd be worth it to, not look at your solution and try going through the practice assessment again.